Why are there no pictures of this humanitarian crisis except those that are being smuggled out? Why are there no pictures? When you see the pictures on the border coming out of these humanitarian camps run by FEMA, you see them, and all you see, at least me, all you see are these guys who are, sprawled out on the floor. They've got Red Cross blankets. And you're seeing them, and there is one picture that I've seen of the little kid crying at the window. And it doesn't really connect. Let me connect it for you. Our government says we can't break up families. Let me tell you something that you don't hear about. Those pictures that you have seen that have been smuggled out. Remember, call on the press. When you call on the press, they'll fix any problem. Call on the Americans' hearts. The people who are in this administration know it's about the children, it's about the children, it's about the children, it's about the children. If you have suffering children, why are there no pictures? Why are they not calling on the press? Why are they keeping the press away? Well, exploitation of children. Bullcrap. Bullcrap. Because it shows their crimes. And I will tell you that what is happening on the border is damn near crimes against humanity. We are crushing these children. Here's what happens. They're caught. They're taken into a detention center. These detention centers, as you know, were to house maybe 200, 300, 400 people tops. The one in McAllen, I think, was supposed to have only 300 people. It had over 2,500 children. And so what do? They take them into these places, and they don't say, who did you come with? Where's your brother? Where's your sister? If you came with your sister, doesn't matter. In this room are 4-year-olds. In this room, 6-year-olds. In this room, 8-year-olds. They have them from 4 all the way to 17. Different rooms. If you're 17 and you came with your 8-year-old sister, she's in the 8-year-old room, you're in the 17-year-old room. And you're there for at least a week until they can finally get you onto a bus and reunite you with your sister. And then they just give you, they literally just drop you off at the Greyhound bus depot and say, here's your ticket to go wherever it is you're going. Don't talk to anybody. That's what they do. As I was talking to some of the people, and I don't want to say the names or the organizations or anything because they are both left and right. They are people that I strongly agreed with and just as vehemently disagreed with others. And they are all telling us the same story. As God is my witness, as Pat is my witness. You were there. You heard all of these stories. Mm-hmm. And from both sides, correct?
Right.
People who did not want to tell me because they were like, they were not on our side, per se, of sending these people back. But they had connected to their heart, and they had seen it. And then those who were on our side, who had also told us the story because they had connected to their heart, and they were on our side. Both sides. This is not partisan. It is the Superdome and Katrina. They are separating these children. They are leaving them alone for a week. David Barton said to me, Glenn, they can't get in. No preachers can get into these detention centers. So there's no spiritual nourishment. There's no hugs, which, by the way, in the detention center, you're not allowed to touch the children. You're not allowed to hug the children. So it's a room full of 5-year-olds who have been left alone for a week by themselves with no one to hold them and tell them what's going on. As I stood at the banks of the river in tarantula, rattlesnake, and scorpion-infested woods, looking to the other side where the woods are infested with drug lords, and thought and looked at little teeny shoes of 5-year-olds, a little teeny Yankees jacket of a kid who had left it there, who had to be 6. I thought, what is going on with these children? How are they processing this? How are they doing it? And then I find out they're transported to one of these stabilization camps run by FEMA, where no one from the religious organizations are allowed in. So as you got a guy with a badge there that can comfort these kids as he closes the door on them and says, here's some more. Okay, kids, well, you're going to be okay. Nighty-night. And pulls the door closed. A guy who actually walked in, 2 witnesses. A guy who walked in because he demanded it, and he had the clout to do it. He walked in, and he saw this long row of glass walls, and the children behind those glass walls like they were in some sort of a zoo. And on the door of the first one, it just said 4-year-olds. The next one said 5-year-olds. The next one said 6. He grabbed the doorknob of the 6-year-old room, and he walked in. And as this man told me, please tell this story, this Hispanic man, who I think had come over here illegally 40 years ago, 50 years ago, as he stood there and tears were running down his cheeks, he said, I didn't make it to any of the other rooms. He said, I couldn't look at it anymore. He said, I walked in, and these 6-year-old children all stopped and looked at me. And one little girl grabbed onto my 2 fingers. She said, she grabbed my hand and took my 4 fingers, 2 in each hand, and held them, and pulled me down, and said, please take me home with you. I'll go home with you. Please take me home with you. These children haven't been hugged. These children don't have any idea what's going on. These children don't know where their brother is or their sister is because they've been separated by the federal government. When we finally went to the Catholic Church, which is doing a really great job, and quite honestly, Sister Norma is doing a great job, but she's not somebody I agree with on the border by any stretch of the imagination, but she is a good-hearted woman. And as she took us in to the medical facility, you will see tonight, the Catholic Church is brought in, and the town of McAllen is helping pay for, and private donations are paying for. Private doctors are volunteering their time. I met a doctor from San Antonio who's coming out just on the weekends just to help. Nurses doing the same thing. As I was in that medical camp, she said some of the women, she said, as you see, she showed us the kitchens where they're feeding some of these people, and she said some of the women come in, we have to feed them only soup because they can't handle anything. Do you remember when that story first came out that probably pissed you off? Oh, yeah. And now they're coming over and they don't like our food. They're complaining about the food. No, they're not complaining about the food. Why was that story written that way? No, they're not complaining about the food. Their systems can't handle the food. They've most of them been on the road for at least 30 days. They haven't had any real food. It's just like the concentration camps. You can't just open up the doors and say, okay, everybody have sandwiches. She said, we're feeding them soup. She said, but a couple of the women, she said, this is where they've come, and the doctors will examine them. And she said, a couple of them we've had to have, they've needed IV bags. And that's what I said to this woman who's very kind and compassionate and big-hearted. I said to her, hang on, Sister Norma, just a second here. They're coming to you after being dropped off at the bus depot. They're coming to you after a week in detention. How is it they still can't handle any food? How is it that they are leaving there dehydrated and you are giving them vaccinations and shots? And I think because she didn't want any controversy, she said, well, they probably didn't say anything at the detention center. I didn't get into an argument with her, and I don't want to put words in her mouth that she did not say. But I have a hard time understanding how the Catholic Church is asking these questions, how the Catholic Church has a doctor there, a volunteer doctor, who is examining people and say, you need IV, you're dehydrated, and how our federal government isn't doing that. This is the answer why you're not seeing any pictures of this humanitarian crisis, because it is the Superdome in several locations. You need to understand, and you need to be the voice that tells people, look, do you remember when they trashed me for saying, I hate all Katrina victims or something like that? And I said, no, you didn't listen to the context. I was talking to people at a fundraiser, and I was on the air, and we were trying to raise funds for the Katrina victims. And there were those who were stealing televisions and those who were shooting at helicopters. And I said, don't close your heart because of those people. Because there is real need. Those are a small number. Don't close your heart. And do you remember the stories? The reason why they're not letting the press anywhere, and the press must begin to demand it. And not just in one city, but every single one of these camps. The press must demand to be let in. The only way to stop this is through transparency. We are breaking up families. Let me tell you something. We are putting traumatized people on a bus and just dropping them off at the Greyhound bus depot. Traumatized people, traumatized children who may never recover. And how much will they cost us later, if you want to boil it down to that? How much will they cost us later? How much damage has been done to these children by the drug lords, by their own families, by the trip, and then by the federal government saying, no hugs, no touching, break the family up again and separate them by age. It's a nightmare. It's a nightmare. We're better than this. We are so much better than this. And this part of it has nothing to do with justice. This has everything to do with mercy. Justice must be done. We must close our border. We must stop this insanity. We are empowering all of the bad people. We are destroying people. It must end now. But while we declare that, we have got to get our churches involved. We have got to get people who actually care. The government has no heart. It wasn't designed to have a heart. You have the heart. Our churches have the heart. Our relief organizations, they have the heart. They should be the ones doing this. If you want the government to do less, then we must do more. If you want the government to do less, you must do more. You know the government has no heart. You know your church does have a heart. Find these centers. Picket, protest, call, do whatever you have to do. Forget about the buses coming in for a second. Get into those shelters and help these children. Help them. They are alone, they are afraid, they're traumatized, and our government is aiding in the trauma.